Pennsylvania clergy abuse scandal came to light most prominently with a grand jury report released in 2018. That report documented credible allegations of sexual abuse by more than 300 priests, spanning 7 dioceses and affecting over 1,000 child victims. The revelations triggered a cascade of investigations, lawsuits, and reforms, both within Pennsylvania and across the United States. Timeline of key events. 2002, the Boston Globe Spotlight investigation exposed patterns of abuse and cover-ups, inspiring survivors in other states to come forward. August 2016, Pennsylvania Attorney General launches a statewide grand jury investigation into diocesan handling of abuse claims. August 2018, grand jury issues an 884-page report detailing allegations against over 300 priests, naming dozens and outlining decades of concealment. Late 2018 to 2020, more than 1,000 lawsuits are filed against 6 dioceses. Several dioceses declare bankruptcy to manage settlements. 2019-2021, Pennsylvania legislature enacts reforms extending the statute of limitations for child sexual abuse cases. Legal outcomes and settlements. Diocesan bankruptcies. The Diocese of Erie and the Diocese of Harrisburg each filed for Chapter 11 protection to address mounting legal claims. Financial settlements. Victims reported receiving over $500 million in settlements by mid-2020. Additional claims continue to be adjudicated. Criminal prosecutions. A handful of priests faced criminal charges. However, many allegations predated modern statutes of limitations, preventing prosecution. Church response and policy changes. Public apologies and outreach. Pennsylvania bishops issued unified statements acknowledging past failures and expressing solidarity with survivors. Safe environment programs. Dioceses implemented mandatory background checks, child protection training, and whistleblower hotlines. Compliance oversight. The Pennsylvania Catholic Conference established annual reviews of diocesan compliance with child safety protocols. Broader implications. Nationwide reckoning. The Pennsylvania report set a benchmark for transparency, prompting similar investigations in other states and countries. Legal reform. Many jurisdictions reevaluated statutes of limitation to give survivors more time to seek justice. Cultural shift. Parishes reevaluated authority structures, emphasizing accountability over clerical immunity. An 18-month investigation by the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office examined 6 dioceses: Allentown, Erie, Greensburg, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, and Scranton, documenting systemic cover-ups of clerical sexual abuse and compiling evidence against 301 priests accused of abusing over 1,000 children between 1947 and 2017. The report was released on August 14, 2018, as an 884-page redacted document after a Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruling mandated public disclosure. Methodology. Reviewed approximately 500,000 pages of diocesan records and emails. Interviewed dozens of witnesses, including survivors, litigation counsel, and church officials. Collaborated with the FBI to corroborate documentation and testimony. Redactions were required due to ongoing appellate litigation at the time of release. 301 priests were credibly accused. The majority of victims were boys, with ages ranging from elementary school through seminary. Priests were frequently reassigned to new parishes to evade scrutiny, and diocesan leaders routinely prioritized institutional reputation over child safety. Common cover-up strategies included using euphemisms like boundary issues, mandating peer-led investigations, and shuttling accused clergy through psychological treatment facilities without reporting to law enforcement. Only 2 priests were charged post-report, as most allegations fell outside criminal statutes of limitations. Both were later convicted and imprisoned. John Jagan, a Boston priest accused of molesting over 130 children, whose case received significant media attention and led to large settlements. Rudolf Koss, a Dallas priest who received a life sentence for sexual molestation. Bernard Francis Law, the former Archbishop of Boston who resigned in 2002 amid accusations of covering up abuse cases. James Porter, known as the first priest to be incarcerated for sexual abuse during the 1990s scandal. Theodore McCarrick, a former Archbishop of Washington, D.C., accused of sexual assault who was removed from ministry and resigned from the College of Cardinals in 2010. George Pell, a high-ranking Vatican official who was convicted of sexual abuse in Australia, although his conviction was later overturned. John Joseph Jack Jegan was an American serial child rapist and Catholic priest assigned to parishes in the Archdiocese of Boston in Massachusetts. He was reassigned to several parish posts involving interaction with children, even after receiving treatment for pedophilia. Born June 4, 1935, Boston, Massachusetts. Died August 23, 2003, age 68 years, Sousa Baranowski Correctional Center, Lancaster, Massachusetts. Church, Catholic Church. Congregations served, various, Archdiocese of Boston. Convictions, indecent assault and battery. Criminal penalty, 9 to 10 years imprisonment. Rudolf Edward Koss is a former Roman Catholic priest who was found guilty of sex crimes in the Diocese of Dallas in the U.S. state of Texas. In 1998, Koss was convicted of 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault and sentenced to life in prison. Born 1945, age 80 years. Criminal penalty, life imprisonment. Bernard Francis Cardinal Law was an American prelate of the Catholic Church who, among other offices, served as Archbishop of Boston from 1984 to 2002. Wikipedia. Born November 4, 1931. Torreon, Mexico. Died December 20th, 2017, age 86 years. Rome, Italy. Place of burial, Papal Basilica of St. Mary Major. Rome, Italy. Books, Boston's Cardinal, Bernard Law, The Man and His Witness Parents. Helen Law, Bernard Law. Education, Harvard University, Pontifical College Josephinum. Charlotte Amalie High School, St. Joseph Seminary College. Appointed January 11, 1984. Theodore Edgar McCarrick was an American Roman Catholic bishop and cardinal who was Archbishop of Newark from 1986 to 2000 and Archbishop of Washington from 2001 to 2006. In 2019, McCarrick was defrocked by Pope Francis after being convicted of sexual misconduct in a canonical trial. Born 1930, New York, New York. Died April 3, 2025, age 94 years. Missouri Books, Pope John Paul III, An American Celebration. See more education. The Catholic University of America, 1958-1963. St. Joseph's Seminary, 1958. Fordham Preparatory School, 1949. Parents: Theodore Egan McCarrick, Margaret McLaughlin McCarrick. George Pell AC was an Australian cardinal of the Catholic Church. From 2002, he faced recurring accusations of sexual abuse, although his subsequent sexual abuse conviction was quashed on appeal to the High Court of Australia. Born June 8, 1941, Ballarat, Australia. Died January 10, 2023, age 81 years, UPMC, Salvator Mundi International Hospital, Rome, Italy. Buried January 14, 2023, St. Mary's Cathedral, Sydney, Australia. Parents: George Arthur Pell, Margaret Lillian Burke. Appointed 24th of February, 2014. Church, Catholic Church. Education, Corpus Christi College, Melbourne. Pontifical Urban University, Campion Hall, Oxford, Monash University. The issue gained significant media attention in the early 2000s, especially after investigative reporting by the Boston Globe revealed widespread abuse in the Boston Archdiocese and the systematic cover-up by church officials who transferred abusive priests to different parishes rather than report them to law enforcement. Investigations and reports, including a study commissioned by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, revealed that thousands of priests had been accused of sexual abuse, impacting tens of thousands of children in the United States and globally. The Church's response to the crisis has been criticized as inadequate and prioritizing the institution's reputation over the safety of children. The scandals have resulted in numerous lawsuits, multi-million-dollar settlements with victims, and even bankruptcy filings for some dioceses. High-ranking church officials, including cardinals and bishops, have faced allegations of abuse and complicity in cover-ups, leading to resignations and removals from office. The ongoing scandal has significantly impacted public opinion of the Catholic Church, contributing to a decline in church attendance and charitable contributions. In response to the crisis, the Catholic Church has implemented reforms, including a zero-tolerance policy towards abusive priests and the establishment of commissions to protect minors, according to IBESCO. Despite these efforts, concerns remain about accountability, justice for victims, and the Church's transparency in addressing past and ongoing cases. Pope Francis has ordered the Vatican to reopen the case of a well-known priest-artist accused of sexually, psychologically, and spiritually abusing adult women, and removed the statute of limitations that had previously prevented a church trial based on the women's claims. The Vatican's announcement Friday marked a major turnaround for the Holy See and followed a growing outcry among abuse victims and their advocates over the handling of the case of the Reverend Marco Ivan Rupnik, a once exalted Jesuit preacher whose mosaics grace churches and basilicas around the world. The Rupnik scandal has been a headache for the Jesuits, the Vatican, and Francis himself due to suspicions that he received favorable treatment from the Holy See, where a Jesuit is pope, and other Jesuits head the sex crimes office that investigated Rupnik and declined to prosecute him because the claims against him were deemed too old. A Vatican statement said Francis's Abuse Prevention Commission had flagged serious problems in the way his case was handled initially, particularly in the lack of outreach to victims. That terminology was significant in itself because church authorities previously refused to even consider the women with claims against Rupnik as victims. Francis asked the Vatican's Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, which handles abuse-related crimes according to church law, to review the case and decided to lift the statute of limitations to allow a trial to take place, the statement said. Rupnik, a Slovene priest, was declared excommunicated by the Vatican in May 2020 for one of the most serious crimes in the Catholic Church's legal code, using the confessional to absolve a woman with whom he had engaged in sexual activity. But the excommunication was lifted 2 weeks later, and he continued in his artistic and preaching activities, which include running an art and study center in Rome. When 9 more claims against him were presented to the Vatican a year later, dating from 30 years ago, the Sex Crimes Office refused to waive the statute of limitations against him. The Dicastery Office, where a Jesuit priest is the prosecutor, also decided not to pursue other allegations against him, such as false mysticism, which aren't subject to time limits. The Jesuit order kicked him out this summer after even more adult women came forward accusing him of sexual, psychological, and spiritual abuses. After conducting their own investigation, the Jesuits said they found the women's claims to be very highly credible. But they said the Vatican's canonical norms in force at the time of the alleged abuse precluded a canonical trial or harsher punishment. In the end, the Jesuits expelled him, not for allegations of abuse, but because of his stubborn refusal to observe the vow of obedience. The Jesuits had exhorted Rupnik to atone for his misconduct and enter into a process of reparation with his victims, but he refused. On Friday, Rupnik's former superior, the Reverend Johann Verschuren, welcomed the announcement that a church trial would finally take place, calling it a major step in the right direction.
Finally, justice can have a chance. For the alleged victims and testimonies, they can be heard and recognized in their dignity, and for Rupnik, who can defend himself, he said in an email. He said he hoped for a fair trial and just outcome, so that the confusion in the church may soon come to an end. In a January 24 interview with the Associated Press, Francis denied he had any role in the handling of Rupnik's case, other than to intervene procedurally. However, he reaffirmed the decision not to waive the statute of limitations in the case, saying he always lifts time limits for abuse of minor cases, but not those involving adults. His decision to reverse course and allow the old claims to go forward in a trial suggested a realization that the scandal was now seriously undermining his credibility and jeopardizing any progress the church had made in combating abuse. Francis' conservative opponents, in particular, were increasingly using the Rupnik scandal to discredit the Pope, much as they did during the 2018 scandal over ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who was also accused of abusing adults but long given a pass by the Vatican. The Catholic Church has long responded to women who report priests for abusing their authority by blaming the women for seducing the churchmen, portraying them as mentally unstable or minimizing the event as a mere mistake or boundary violation by an otherwise holy priest. Those same claims were used by Rupnik's supporters to discredit his accusers. Francis' recent gestures and statements had raised questions about his attitude toward the case and Rupnik's alleged victims. For starters, Francis met with Rupnik's main supporter, who has lashed out at what she called the lynching he received in the press. Then, Francis' own Vicariate of Rome issued a statement seemingly casting doubt on the validity of the excommunication decree. Those gestures prompted 5 of Rupnik's alleged victims to break their silence and pen a signed, open letter saying such attitudes from Rupnik's superiors had re-victimized them and showed that church pledges of zero tolerance for abuse were just a publicity stunt. The outcry only grew this week when a diocese in Rupnik's native Slovenia announced it had welcomed him in after the Jesuits threw him out. The Diocese of Koper said it had done so because it had received no documentation about any conviction against him, and that he was presumed innocent.